The No Kings protests of October 18, 2025, represented a historic, massive outpouring of civil resistance against the administration of President Donald Trump's second term. Building upon earlier demonstrations in June, the event was a coordinated, decentralized action, drawing an estimated 7 million participants across more than 2,700 locations in all 50 states, making it one of the largest single-day protests in American history. Organized by a broad coalition of over 200 progressive groups, civil rights organizations, including the ACLU and Indivisible and labor unions, the movement's central, unifying message was a simple rejection of authoritarianism, the assertion that America has no kings. Participants mobilized to peacefully demonstrate their commitment to constitutional limits on power amidst a deepening governmental and legislative crisis, including a protracted government shutdown. Analysis: reasons and immediate consequences. The protest movement was fueled by both ideological concerns regarding the structure of democracy and specific, tangible policy actions taken by the executive branch. Primary reasons for mobilization: rejection of authoritarianism and executive overreach. The symbolic core of the movement was the opposition to President Trump's perceived consolidation of power, which critics argued placed him above the law and the Constitution. The use of monarchical terminology by the president and his allies, and the corresponding pushback, gave the movement its name and urgency. Militarization and federal intervention. Key policy triggers included the aggressive deployment of federal forces and the federalization of the National Guard in American cities, often against the will of local authorities. Protesters viewed this as an unwarranted militarization of domestic life and an erosion of local governance. Immigration crackdowns and civil liberties. Sweeping, aggressive immigration enforcement raids and the general targeting of dissenting voices and political opponents served as direct threats to civil liberties, compelling groups like the ACLU and immigrant rights advocates to mobilize. Economic and social policy cuts. Widespread frustration over the gutting of social programs, reductions in the federal workforce, and significant tax breaks for billionaires, alongside the economic hardship caused by the ongoing government shutdown, provided a strong economic motive for workers and public sector advocates to join. Immediate consequences. The sheer scale of the October demonstrations had an immediate political impact by demonstrating the depth of anti-administration sentiment across the nation, reaching into communities, both urban and rural, that had previously seen less civic action. The protests highlighted the nation's profound political polarization. Democratic officials openly embraced the rallies as a celebration of democracy, while the president and Republican leaders vehemently denounced them as hate America gatherings and partisan disruptions intended to prolong the budget impasse. Critically, the overwhelmingly nonviolent nature of the protests, a result of extensive organizational training, challenged the administration's attempts to dismiss the participants as an extremist or Antifa fringe. Prediction and solutions. The long-term impact of the No Kings movement depends entirely on its ability to translate street mobilization into sustained political influence and structural change. Prediction for the future. The momentum generated by the October protests is widely predicted to become a significant factor in the 2026 midterm elections. Historically, mass nonviolent protests can galvanize new voters and reshape political narratives. The movement's success will be measured not just by turnout, but by its ability to maintain the energy necessary to engage in continuous civic action, applying the principle of the 3.5% rule, that sustained, nonviolent participation by a small percentage of the population can force political change. If the movement successfully registers and mobilizes the millions who marched, it could provide the necessary political pressure to check executive power and shift legislative control. However, if the energy dissipates, the protests risk being retrospectively categorized as a massive, but ultimately temporary expression of frustration. Proposed solutions and actions. The solutions advocated by the No Kings Coalition extend beyond street action to systemic reform. Sustained civic engagement. The primary solution is to ensure the protests serve as a launchpad for continuous community organizing, voter registration drives, and town hall meetings, rather than a single event. Legislative pressure. The movement aims to pressure Congress to pass legislation that establishes concrete limits on executive power, strengthens federal protections for free speech and judicial independence, and specifically restricts the president's ability to deploy federal military forces domestically without local consent. Defending democratic institutions. Focused action is planned to defend the integrity of elections, support independent journalism, and protect the federal workforce and civil service from political purges. Economic action. Certain segments of the movement have also proposed escalating the resistance through economic boycotts and labor actions, recognizing that immediate policy impacts on healthcare, wages, and union rights are powerful drivers of participation. Ultimately, the No Kings movement is less a protest against a specific party and more a fundamental, high-stakes defense of post-1776 American constitutionalism, demanding that power remain with the people, not a single ruler.